After being deliberately left out of Thanksgiving dinner by my own family, no invite, no explanation, I booked a last-minute trip to Aspen to clear my head. As I watched snowfall from a luxury lodge, news broke that their long-awaited store opening had ended in bankruptcy and public humiliation. They wanted a holiday without me. Turns out, karma accepted the invitation instead. I appreciate you being here with me today. I trust your day is going wonderfully, wherever you are. I would be delighted if you could share in the comments section which city or nation you are viewing from and what the current time is there. Now let us embark on our narrative together. The aroma of Oak Haven Outfitters was the very essence of my youth, a combination of aged timber, sturdy canvas, and the subtle, clean scent of the cleaning products I used to assist my father in stacking by the cash register. It was a fragrance that permeated your clothing, lodged beneath your fingernails, and settled deeply within your core. For 2 decades, that scent had signified belonging. I was Alex, and Oak Haven Outfitters was more than just a retail establishment. It was the vital pulse of our household. My parents, Robert and Susan, established it from the ground up, investing their entire lives into it, and for the past 10 years so had I. While my younger sibling, Jason, the favored offspring, effortlessly progressed through business school, fully financed, no debts, all costs covered, I remained here in the trenches, working late into the evenings, tallying inventory under the hum of fluorescent lights, untangling complex shipments, managing disgruntled patrons with a forced smile, and acquiring the unspoken wisdom of supply and demand that academic texts could never impart. I was not complaining. This was also my destined path. Jason was the visionary, the individual with the prestigious qualification and the trendy jargon. I was the bedrock, the person who knew what each customer purchased, who could identify a fake from a distance, and who could make the antiquated, creaking register function with a precise tap. I took pride in this. I believe they recognized it too. There were fleeting moments, a nod from my father when I resolved a plumbing issue independently, a rare "Well done, Alex," from my mother after I handled a challenging vendor. But predominantly, the commendation, the focus, the discussions about the future were reserved for Jason. I recall one summer, years ago, I proposed we begin offering locally crafted hiking equipment, boots, packs, specialized maps. I had conducted the research, located suppliers. My father dismissed it with a wave of his hand. "Good notion, Alex, but stick to stocking. Jason is envisioning grander things." Months later, Jason returned from university, presented ideas for local artisan collaborations, and suddenly it was hailed as brilliant. Jason's contemporary outlook, my mother had declared, beaming. A sting, quick and sharp, a tiny prick, but I dismissed it. That was the established pattern. Jason excelled, I provided support. Then came the significant announcement. My mother and father were establishing a second location, larger, more modern, targeting a younger demographic. They were committing a substantial portion of their retirement savings, alongside a considerable bank loan. It was to be named Oak Haven Outfitters Modern Living, and Jason would oversee it. My spirit swelled with a blend of enthusiasm and apprehension. This was an immense undertaking. I immediately offered my assistance. "I have a decade of experience here, Dad," I stated, leaning against the counter that felt like an extension of my own being. "I understand the business thoroughly, the clientele, the operational flow. I can assist with site scouting, staff training, setting up inventory systems." My mother let out a light, dismissive chuckle, a sound that invariably tightened my stomach. "Oh, Alex, that's thoughtful, but Jason has this handled. He possesses the business school expertise, the modern perspective. Your concepts, well, they are a bit outdated for what we are endeavoring to achieve now." My father nodded in agreement, not even glancing up from a catalog. "Outdated?" My voice was subdued. I felt as though I had been struck. "Outdated after a decade of preserving their original vision? I have been the one sustaining this establishment, while Jason was absent. I am the very foundation upon which you are constructing this new store. Do not be overly dramatic," my mother responded, her tone subtly hardening, the first indication that her composure was faltering. "It is merely business. Jason needs to establish his own identity. Merely business. The words reverberated in my mind cold and hollow. The tension simmered beneath the surface in the subsequent weeks, a quiet hum of unspoken resentment. They conversed incessantly about Jason's store blueprints, the contemporary design, the marketing buzzwords, all while I kept the original store operational, working the same extended hours. I felt like a phantom in their triumphant narrative. The decisive blow arrived at the pre-Thanksgiving meal, a few days prior to the holiday itself. The residence on Maple Street, permeated with the comforting aroma of roasting turkey and pumpkin pie, felt both familiar and alien. Forced smiles, polite small talk with relatives, the customary holiday pretense. Jason was holding court in the living room, speaking loudly about market penetration and brand identity. I assisted my mother in setting the table, the worn wooden surface cool beneath my fingertips. I went to the study to retrieve something my mother required, and that is when I observed it, a stack of documents on my father's desk, loan agreements, articles of incorporation for the new store, banking details. My gaze rapidly swept across the pages, Jason's name, my parents' names, signatures, addresses. My name was absent from every section, not as an owner, not as a partner, not even listed as essential personnel in the business plan summary. It was as if I had been systematically, deliberately erased. My blood ran cold. This was not an oversight. This was not about a modern outlook. This was about completely excluding me. After 10 years of my life, my devotion, my sacrifice. I picked up the incorporation papers, my hands trembling so violently the sheets rustled loudly in the quiet room. I walked back towards the dining area, my legs feeling heavy, surreal. I located my mother and father conversing near the kitchen. "Mom, Dad?" My voice was barely a whisper, as delicate as spun glass. They turned, smiles still fixed. "What is this?" I extended the papers. They saw what I was holding, and their smiles vanished, replaced by a flicker of irritation, then defensiveness. "Where did you obtain that?" my father inquired, his voice sharp. "It was on your desk," I mumbled. "My name is not here." My mother sighed, a put-upon sound. "Honestly, Alex, you are making an unnecessary commotion. It is merely a technicality. It streamlines matters for financing and management structure." "Streamlines things?" I gazed at them, the warm, comforting aroma of dinner suddenly making me feel nauseous. "It streamlines things by eliminating me after everything? Do not be overly dramatic," my mother reiterated, her voice now icy cold. She even made that dismissive gesture with her hand. "It is just business. We will discuss it later. The family is present. Just business." The phrase struck me again, a physical impact this time. My chest tightened violently, as if someone had wrapped barbed wire around my lungs, making it impossible to draw a full breath. I surveyed the house, the photographs on the walls, the familiar furnishings, the sound of Jason laughing in the adjacent room. It all felt alien, hostile. Every family photograph on the wall felt like an accusation, a monument to a falsehood I had endured. I stared at the picture on the mantelpiece, the one taken last Christmas, all of us smiling, a portrait of a perfect family. It felt as though I had already been removed from the frame long before I saw these documents. Is this what family means to you?" I whispered, the words raw, my voice completely breaking on the final word. It was not a question that demanded an answer. Their stern and unyielding expressions were the reply. I let the papers fall to the floor. They fluttered like detached leaves. I turned and exited the house. I did not retrieve my coat. I did not bid farewell. I simply walked out the back door, the frigid November air striking me like a physical shock, a harsh purification compared to the stifling warmth within. I drove for an extended period, the streetlights blurring through the tears I could not stem. The agony was physical, a burning ache in my chest. My world had just disintegrated. The family I believed I possessed, the future I thought I was constructing, the identity linked to that establishment, all gone in an instant. I pulled over onto a dark, deserted road. The silence outside the vehicle was absolute, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. What do I do now? Return and plead? Fight? Vanish? Disappearing seemed like the simplest choice, but vanishing felt like allowing them to prevail, allowing them to erase me. Anger, cold and resolute, began to surface, pushing back the overwhelming wave of pain. Years of being overlooked, of sacrificing, of being the dependable support while Jason received the spotlight. Years of just business. Fine. If that was their perspective, if they desired my absence from their flawless family portrait, from their modern vision of commerce, then perhaps I would completely remove myself. And then, just perhaps, I would demonstrate to them precisely what my absence and my expertise would cost. My hands, still trembling slightly, located my phone. I opened a web browser. I required distance, space to contemplate, to inhale air not thick with their expectations and deceit. Somewhere far away, beautiful, detached. Aspen. The name simply appeared in my mind. I searched for flights, for accommodation. I reserved a small, secluded cabin in the mountains. It was costly, an impulsive decision, but it felt like an act of defiance, of reclaiming a small measure of control, spending money on myself, for my requirements, for the first time in memory, without considering the family enterprise or their demands. If they desired business, I would show them business, my kind of business. Aspen. The word itself felt pure, sharp, a contrast to the murky, tangled chaos I had abandoned in Oak Haven. Arriving there was akin to stepping into an alternate reality. The air was thin, bitingly cold, yet incredibly pristine, filling my lungs in a manner that Oak Haven's dusty, retail-scented air never had. The mountains loomed, immense and silent, indifferent to the trivial dramas of human lives unfolding below. Their sheer scale placed my difficulties into perspective, yet also highlighted the vastness of the world beyond the suffocating confines of my family. I spent the initial few days in a daze, traversing hiking trails covered in crisp, dry snow, the only sounds the crunch beneath my boots and the wind whispering through the pines. The solitude was both harsh and essential. It allowed the shock and raw anguish to subside, giving way to a cold, hard resentment. I replayed conversations, disagreements, subtle indignities over the years. I perceived with terrifying clarity the pattern of manipulation, the way my loyalty had been exploited, my contributions taken for granted while Jason was prepared for a future he had not earned in the same manner. My ingrained need for their approval, my blind spot regarding their flaws because they were family, had left me vulnerable to this kind of treachery. It was like awakening from a long, deep slumber and realizing the dwelling was ablaze. Messages and calls from home began to inundate me. My parents' communications were a masterclass in psychological manipulation. "Are you all right? Why are you not responding?" quickly transformed into accusations. "How could you depart right before Thanksgiving? The family is inquiring about you. You are overreacting. This is unacceptable conduct. Your mother is distraught with concern about what people are saying. Never. We are sorry we caused you pain. Never. Let us discuss what transpired." It was entirely about their convenience, their reputation, my supposed selfishness. Jason even texted, "Dude, seriously, Mom and Dad are panicking. Just come home. Do not exaggerate things." The complete absence of comprehension, the casual dismissal of my suffering, solidified my determination. There was nothing to return to. Sitting in the quiet cabin, gazing out at the snow-covered peaks, I realized I could not simply nurse my wounds. Disappearing was insufficient. It would not undo the years of sacrifice or prevent them from doing this to someone else, or from potentially jeopardizing the business I still, deep down, cared about, even if they did not value my position within it. My anger required an outlet, a strategy. This was no longer solely about wounded feelings. It was about justice and safeguarding what was honorable. My initial step was practical. I needed assistance. I located a legal professional in Oak Haven, Sarah Jenkins, specializing in commercial litigation and domestic disputes. Her online profile mentioned expertise with intricate family business transitions. I telephoned her office, feeling anxious, exposed. Sharing the narrative with a stranger was challenging, laying bare the unpleasant truth about my relatives. But Sarah was composed, professional, and listened without judgment. "Based on what you have conveyed to me, Alex," she stated, her voice steady over the phone, "their actions appear highly unethical. Depending on the business structure and your involvement over the years, there could be legal avenues to explore, contesting the new entity's establishment, investigating financial practices, potentially even claims related to your past contributions if they misrepresented your future role." Her objective assessment was like a lifeline. It was not just me being overly dramatic. Their actions had tangible consequences, genuine legal definitions. My task from Aspen became clear: gather information, everything I could recall, everything I could access remotely, old emails from the business account I still had access to, digital files, sales reports I had compiled, communication logs with suppliers. I spent hours sifting through data, searching for anything that illuminated the new store's planning and financing. It felt like assembling fragments of a puzzle I never knew was broken. I also reached out to individuals who understood the business and my role in it, not relatives who were likely already taking sides, but former employees or long-term suppliers with whom I had cultivated relationships. One person stood out, Mark, who had served as the family's bookkeeper for over 15 years before his abrupt departure a few months prior. Mark was quiet, meticulous, and had observed everything. He had always been kind to me, acknowledging my diligent efforts. I was uncertain if he would speak, but I had to attempt it. I sent Mark a carefully phrased email, mentioning I was investigating some discrepancies regarding the new store and inquiring if he might be willing to share any insights. It was a long shot. A day later, he responded. He was cautious but agreed to a secure video call. Seeing Mark's face, tired but resolute, offered a small comfort. "Alex," he began, "I left because things became complicated, uncomfortable." He confirmed my apprehensions. The figures did not align for that second location, not with the official profits from the main store. "Your parents were aggressive in securing that loan." Mark hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "Look, Alex, I was not comfortable with it. They pressured me. They needed the financials to appear better than they were. They inflated the numbers, projected profits that were unrealistic, and they utilized the original store's property deed as collateral, leveraging it almost to its maximum without informing you or, I suspect, most of the family. They were desperate to acquire this new store for Jason, regardless of the risk. I kept copies, just in case." My breath hitched. Inflated numbers. Leveraging the main store's property. This was not merely unjust. This was potential bank fraud. This was not just business, in the sense of a difficult family dynamic. This was criminal enterprise. The stakes shifted entirely. Mark sent me encrypted copies of financial statements he believed were misleading and specifics about the loan terms that seemed predatory given the true condition of the business. The documents were damning. They revealed a clear pattern of misrepresentation to secure funding they likely would not have obtained otherwise. It was not just my family excluding me. They were jeopardizing the entire foundation, the business my grandparents had helped establish, built on deceit. Armed with this evidence, my strategy became clear. This was no longer solely about my position in the business. It was about exposing deception, safeguarding the legacy, and ensuring their reckless ambition had repercussions. Sarah Jenkins reviewed Mark's documents. "This alters things significantly, Alex," she stated gravely. "This is serious. We have grounds for a robust legal challenge, potentially involving fraud allegations. We need to act decisively." We planned the timing. The grand opening of Oak Haven Outfitters Modern Living was scheduled for the Friday after Thanksgiving, a day intended for festive shopping, a public unveiling of their contemporary vision. It was the ideal setting for their meticulously constructed facade. It would also be the ideal setting for its downfall. As the opening date drew near, my family's messages intensified. They knew I was consulting a lawyer. They threatened, they pleaded. "Abandon this, Alex, or you will regret it. You are causing your mother distress." Jason even telephoned, agitated. Dude, seriously, what in the world are you doing? You are going to ruin everything. Their panic was palpable, even from miles away. They were losing control, and they detested it. My quiet resolve in Aspen felt like a stronghold against their tempest. I also contacted Aunt Carol, my mother's sibling, a quieter individual who had always seemed somewhat detached from the primary family drama. I held a faint hope she might listen. We conversed for an extended period. I shared what had transpired, what I had discovered. She was shocked, then saddened. She confessed she had always sensed something was amiss, that Jason was favored, that my diligent efforts were not acknowledged. She recalled conversations, minor remarks my parents had made over the years about the business's future, comments that, in retrospect, suggested their scheme to marginalize me might have been forming for a considerable time. Her confirmation of their long-standing intention was another piece of the painful puzzle falling into place. It reinforced that this was not a recent decision, it was a slow, deliberate erasure. Aunt Carol became another quiet source of support, prepared to assist in any way she could, however minor. The final days leading up to the opening were tense. My existence in Aspen felt surreal, the tranquil beauty of the mountains contrasting with the storm I was about to unleash back home. My family was confidently preparing their grand debut, oblivious to the fact that the foundation they had built it upon was a fabrication, and that fabrication was about to be exposed. The day of the grand opening for Oak Haven Outfitters Modern Living dawned bright and cold back in Pennsylvania. In Aspen, the sun ascended over the snow-capped peaks, the air crisp and still. I sat in my cabin, laptop open, phone charged, monitoring the news and social media feeds, a strange knot of dread and anticipation in my stomach. My lawyer Sarah was prepared. Mark, the former bookkeeper, and Aunt Carol were ready to provide support if required. Photographs began to surface online, the new store gleaming in modern balloons, banners, Jason smiling confidently, giving interviews about his innovative retail concept, my parents beaming with pride, playing the role of the supportive, successful business owners. Their facade was flawless. The community was enthusiastic. They believed they were invincible. My signal to Sarah was a simple text. Go. Minutes later, the first domino fell. News tickers on local stations began to flash. Legal challenge filed against new Oak Haven Outfitters location hours before grand opening. Social media posts from individuals attending the event started shifting in tone. What is happening? Lawyers just arrived. Lots of whispers at the entrance. I refreshed pages frantically, my heart pounding. The news coverage on the local channel cut from a live shot of the cheerful opening crowd to a reporter standing outside the store, looking serious. Details are still emerging, the reporter stated into the microphone. But sources indicate a lawsuit has been filed this morning alleging serious financial irregularities and questioning the ownership structure of this new business venture. We have seen legal representatives entering the premises. Another window on my screen displayed Twitter. A local business journalist I knew my parents had been courting was now posting furiously. Case at Oak Haven Outfitters Modern Living opening. Lawsuit filed. Allegations of misleading financial statements used for loan. Bank reps are here. Images began to flood in. Photos tagged at the location showed confusion. The forced smiles on my parents' faces, captured just minutes before, were replaced by expressions of shock, confusion, then dawning panic. Jason appeared utterly bewildered, his confident,